Managing Director with Cipla. Umang, good morning. Thank you for joining us. Can you walk us through the gross margins? Because for the quarter gone by, they seem to be weak. Is there an inventory write-off in the quarter gone by?
So actually, this has been one of our better quarters. Top line's grown by almost 9%. PAT has grown by 8%. I think the effect you're seeing in terms of the margins is because the finished goods inventory has actually come down significantly in this quarter, and there's an overhead amount that's absorbed in the inventory which has got released. So we're not very concerned at all about the margins that you're seeing, and I think on a normal basis this will restore back. So we think it's a relatively better quarter for us.
Can you walk us through the India business? What did India business do? Did it continue to see growth in the quarter?
Yes, that's right. We've reported our second successive quarter. This is we reported about, I think, 14% growth last quarter. We've reported 13%. So India is a strong business for us. Our prescription business is doing really well. Prescriptions are up. 17 out of our top 22 brands are growing significantly higher than market. We're investing in this market. I think it's a great business for us. The bigger thing is also our trade generics business is back. Last quarter we guided that this business will come back to high single-digit growth, and it's come back exactly the way we thought it would.
Do you think that the lumpy nature of the India business will continue? The last 2 quarters have seen strong growth, so is the worst behind then?
Yes, and actually in the last 8 quarters, if I go back and look at it, I think out of 5 out of those 8 quarters, we had growth higher than the industry. The first quarter of this year, we had that aberration, right? I think we are back to normal levels. I think the growth is now can be forecasted based on how the last 2 quarters have gone.
The US did well, of course, but the last quarter we haven't seen any new launches. Has that how has that been in Q3? Did you gain any existing market share?
Yeah, I'm not sure that we would increase market share, but I think we've tried to play this value share equation really well. So the US is holding up for us as a market, and it's shown about a 13% growth versus the previous year. So the launches are yet to come, and we are looking forward to those launches as they begin to unlock, starting hopefully in Q4.
Right. You've always talked about the exit rate in the US. You did about $133 million. What do you think will be the Q4 exit rate like?
We don't actually, the US is a tough market to predict an exit rate because there's always competition coming in and you don't know when they're going to come in. So it's not a steady state market. But we had guided saying we would be somewhere in the 120 to 130 rate in the US without the launches. And if the launches come up, they keep adding up. So we're maintaining that rate per quarter until our launches begin to ramp up meaningfully.
Right. So when you talk about US business, what is the expectation of growth next year as a base for US will no longer be small then?
So I think the growth is completely going to be dependent on new product launches. And, while you may say 130, I think it's a good quarter for the US. We're generally looking at the US in the range of 120 to 130. It lands somewhere in between there for our base business. And I think what we're guiding to is if we start getting launches and if they pan out the way we are, we can begin to see build up, over above that 120, 130 range.
Through the US generic environment, do you think we are at the bottom of the cycle?
I think it would be better. What stabilizes means it's not degrowing, and I think somewhere in the US we have to get used to the fact that pricing will always congest. But it was congesting at a much higher rate in the past, and I believe that it's going to congest at a smaller rate now going forward. So I think it will stabilize compared to the previous year. But if you're asking me whether price compression is going to be zero, no, that's not the case.
Globally, we have seen the Mylan Teva deal. We have also seen a lot of players reducing launches of withdrawing drugs, which are not profitable. Can you walk us through 2020? Will this be a stable year?
Some re-rating in the US sector. I'm quite confident about that because if you see the big guys have seen their stock prices beginning to run up a bit, right? I think if you look at Teva's stock market and stock market cap, it's gone up a bit. If you look at Amneal, it's gone up a bit. So the big guys are clearly responding to people moving out. But even on the customer side, we heard this quarter that there were 2 customers, smaller ones of course, within the consolidation who are actually choosing to break away from the buying groups. So I think there's a little bit of movement in the US. I think it does seem to suggest that things are going to reach stability faster.
What did other markets like South Africa do? Did you see the tender business returning back?
The South African private market is showing the 20% growth. In the tender market, if you remember last year, the whole tender market pricing got reset. But despite that, South Africa put together is growing. So the private market's absorbing, which is the more profitable side of our business, is absorbing the gap that the tender market is decompressing with. So I think it's overall, South Africa is a very good, strong growth story, and it continues to be so.
Right. Could you also talk about coronavirus then? What should the viewers do? You being one of the largest pharma companies, what is the advice that you're really handing out?
Well, specific to the virus, I think my thing would be to keep precautionary hygiene. And if you're in a public setting where you're just in a room with too many people, you might just want to take precautions, wash your hands as often as you can, right? If you're traveling and you have, traveling in an area which is called contained air for a long time, like most aircrafts have that, try wearing a mask if it's possible. Do this if you're going to areas where there's an infection already, right? You don't have to be over cautious, but just be careful. And if you know of people who are ailing with this, provide a lot of emotional support, but make sure that you're also in some way keeping a distance.
Good to speak with you then today. Thanks so much for giving us perspective on how Q3 was and a color on how the next quarter is likely to shape up. Good chatting with you as always.